pop culture with DJ and graffiti are expressed every day within the inner cities of America and the world. You are not hearing hip-hop, you are hip-hop.
So, back in 2024, I remember having a conversation with a particular genius. And we were discussing how would Black lives be impacted by Project 2025. Now, at that time, people were saying, oh, it's fake, it's not real, you guys are fear mongers, blah, blah, blah. And I mentioned that you can go on the website, download it for yourself, read it page by page, and people were asking for cliff notes. Even if you had the cliff notes, what was shared should have caused some concern, should have caused some pause. So it was the mandate for leadership. Now, keep in mind, this has been around since the 80s, like since the Reagan years. They just update it every single time. You know, these people who want to roll us back to the antebellum era, they play the long game. And so I was talking to this genius and said, I believe we should have an updated conversation. It's been a year now that we have had to live with this Project 2025. And I thought, you know what, let's talk about what has happened in a year. So I'm going to play the intro and we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I am praying that I'm going to get through all of this today. I will tell you right now, I am still overwhelmed from all of the research to make sure I had up-to-date data and what have you. But let me make sure I'm clear. You are watching Girl Listen. Okay. I am Gwendolyn G.R. Houston Jack. I want to thank you all for being here. Clearly, it is a special hour because we have a special guest today to join us in having this conversation. And this is streaming live to LinkedIn and to YouTube. So if you are on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe. You can do that too, because, you can do that too. Let me do this. Let me tell you about Ms. Alice Harvey. She's from Tuskegee, Alabama. Okay. And I also love that she is a retired public school teacher. So we're not just grabbing some random person here. She has a lot of life lessons to share. We also want to congratulate her on 50 years of being married. She's got 3 kids, 1 granddaughter. But when it comes to her interests and where you're going to see her be active, it stems around education, art, politics, and community. I want to welcome Ms. Alice Harvey.
Hi.
How are you, Ms. Alice? How are you?
I'm doing well with all the tears.
I want to make sure that you were properly introduced. I don't want to not give you your flowers, but I do want to do this too before we get into our conversation, because I know I am truly hoping that we get through all of it. I picked 4. There's a 5th one in there, and I thought, I don't know if we can do it, because when I started doing my research, I really did become overwhelmed.
Yes.
I was like, you look at the numbers, what numbers we can get, since this regime doesn't believe in numbers. And yeah. So let me do this. Let me say some hellos. My mother's here. Hello to my mother. We got Gary in the building. Hello to you. Letta is here as well. Lisa is in the building. Hello. And she says, I can't see anything. Am I the only one that she's on already? Oh. What can you not see, Lisa? Oh, okay, wait a minute. She can see it now. All right,
can see
want to
it now.
make sure we're good. Okay, want to make sure we're good. Okay, let me get right into it. Because what we're talking about here is the true cost of Project 2025 and 26 on Black lives. And I just want to talk to you guys about the 4 topics I am hoping to get to. There is a 5th one that I want to speak about too. But we're looking at how we've been impacted by job opportunities and economic mobility, voting rights and political power, healthcare, especially for Black women, and then education and the future of Black children. Ms. Elise, now the last time we talked, Ms. Alice, make sure I get it right. And hello to Dr. Tachi, hello. We talked about how it wasn't just Black lives that would be impacted, but everybody who was not a white heterosexual male. You want to expound on that real quick?
Yeah. So when we think about it in totality, right? A part of that's under attack is anyone that does not fall in the category of white, quote unquote, heterosexual, and in many cases, quote unquote, Christian men. And I say that because when we look at the programs that they're attacking, those programs address underrepresented people, which also included white women. It also included white people who were poor and disadvantaged themselves, who didn't have the opportunity. So it was about those underrepresented groups. They kind of made Black faces the poster child because that's the most effective one at getting people to respond to their bigotry, their racism, the hatred that they have for people of color, for Black or brown people. And I stopped using people of color because, I want white people to understand they're white. So that's why I say Black and brown.
Yes, I agree with you there.
Really, in a nutshell, why that's the group. And really, when we think about it, the poor white man is being used to actually impact his own needs negatively, because they can bait him and get him to do their bidding.
Before we jump into this, I want to do 2 things. One, I want to make people aware that you can follow Ms. Alice on Instagram. She's also here on YouTube. We're working on that, but she is on Instagram. So do connect with her because she's always putting out really great information. And I want to say hello to Jazzy, who is in the building as well. She says 2 of my favorite ladies. She said, I'm on the right side now. I know, I caught that. I saw that in there. And Chris is in the building as well. All right, let's get into it. We're going to start with job opportunities and economic mobility. We have to talk about the numbers. Now, as I said before, getting data is really hard right now because this administration was clear that they didn't want to get, or should say, continue to collect data. We noticed that. We knew that by reading Project 2025. They did not want to get data because data tells you what's really happening. So I want to bring this up big screen. Let's talk about some of the impacts here. I'm going to take that really quick. Black women lost 38,000 jobs in April of 2025 alone, with the unemployment rate rising from 5.1% to 6.1%. Now, a lot of that comes from these corporate rollbacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion that have truly harmed a lot of Black professionals. There was reduced hiring pipelines, fewer promotions, and a lot of dissolved teams around that. And I want to show you some numbers really quick. In 2024, the Black unemployment rate was between like 5.3 and 6. But we had, some of a fairly safe, or should say secure, economic, what's the word I want to use? I'm going to say, I don't want to say industry. What's the word, Miss Elise? I'm trying to think of the word there.
Are you want to do stability or how do you
stability? Yes, I'll say that, stability. And then in 2025, well, look at that. We're talking 7.5% by December 2025. That's the highest since 2021, and it's been rising for the last 3+ months compared to everybody else. Overall, unemployment rate in the U.S. is 4. That's annual. That was in 2024. There was a strong labor market. That's the word market. And then in 2025, it went to 4.2 to 4.4% mid-year. And the labor market is, of course, softening. Now, Miss Alice, we talked about how a lot of Black professionals, Black women, Black men, but a lot of Black women had federal jobs.
Yes.
It was the one way to see some economic mobility. What are your thoughts on that?
So, of course, this is going back to review Project 2025, right? One of the things we know about Black women in America is that they're the most educated constituency. And one of the things that they put in for that they're definitely going to use is that they're going to not pay as much attention to or require bachelor's degrees for the federal jobs. Mm-hmm. So a big part of that is how many women lost their federal jobs, because they played a tremendous role in the employees of the federal government. And so that's a big part of what's going on. And then, of course, the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which everyone and even the employers are interpreting as Black.
Yes.
Not necessarily looking at all the groups that make up what that means, because it's not Black. And so because the Black female had such a high a profile or number of people in the federal government, a lot of those, particularly if you live in the DC, Washington, Maryland, Virginia area, a lot of those are the people who were impacted in those programs. And then some of them, when corporations have diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of those people were also Black women in those particular, who were kind of guiding those programs along the way. But it's much bigger than that. And so as they reduce the requirements, as academic requirements, particularly for federal jobs, less merit there, it changes playing field.
Yeah, I was looking at the bigger economic impact. And one of the thoughts I had was, a lot of Black women can be the person who is bringing in the most bread in their home. And so if you have that job instability, and then that can run into being housing instability, that impacts your overall wealth for the entire family for years to come. Is how a lot of people, again, were able to make moves. And you go in there with literally a chainsaw, and the next thing you know, it changes everything. Like, there were so many women I saw on LinkedIn, and it's really hard because it all depends on where you are, but a number of us across the board, just in terms of like people, we attach our worth to our job.
Yes. And
when you don't have it, and it's how you've known yourself, it does more than just impact you economically. It's hitting you mentally and emotionally too. Like, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 punch.
Right.
It's major.
Yeah, because we're taught to get ourselves educated and get jobs, not necessarily creating opportunities outside of the public or government workforce, right? So we're not taught as much to be entrepreneurs, to create some things. And of course, we see a lot of women now, a lot of people who have lost their jobs trying to create their own way of entrepreneurship. So we talk about impacting housing, but it also impacts food insecurity.
Yes.
You lose your job, you can't, and it takes months to find one. If you don't have that cushion, and we know that a lot of people don't have savings accounts, you now have no job, no real savings. And so therefore it's impacting housing and food insecurity.
Let me get to some of these comments as they're coming in. Dr. Tachi says that they want to fill these jobs with as many inept people as possible. Look, I need this current timeline to just end. Like, if we could be in a Marvel, Marvel episode in the comic book. I need someone to get into the room, straighten out this squiggly line, and get our timeline back in order. Seeing and hearing some of the most ignorant statements, I'm just like, I don't even understand. I want to understand, but I can't, because it's just stupid. And I rarely use that word, but this really is just stupid. But yeah. Let me keep going here.
Like you have to watch it. I had never really watched Stranger Things until, we were on vacation and my granddaughter and daughter and all of them were like, we're going to watch the, last few episodes. And I said, so when it feels like that we are in the upside down.
Yes, we're in the upside down. It doesn't even begin to make sense. Jazzy says, understanding what diverse equity inclusion is versus affirmative action is very important because they're not the same thing. Oh, thank you, ma'am. You are correct there. Once you can link that emotional connection with the job, you can thrive in everything you try and do. I do understand that, because I'm not gonna lie, I went through it myself. I was like, am I? And it's hard, but it takes work to disconnect that from your worth. That is not an overnight thing. She says, where's the Black Panther when you need him? We need him. We do. We most certainly do. And I want to add this in here too, because like I said, I was sitting here getting as many numbers as possible when it comes to how this is making a bigger impact. But I don't want to leave out the EEOC.
Yes.
And how that oversight, how the idea of being able to talk about discrimination and enforcement, it is now harder to prove bias. It is easier for employers to retaliate. We know that in taking out these programs, as you mentioned, when they think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they automatically think a Black professional, right? And they go there first. This whole thing about meritocracy, in my head, it is just your excuse of saying, I'm mediocre, so please pick me, because it's not there. It's just not there.
Absolutely. We definitely know that, especially when it comes to Black women, right? The most educated workforce in the country. So it's not about merit. And then when you just put it in the perspective of how you want you actually, in this document, they want to eliminate the idea that these federal jobs, you have to have a bachelor's degree unless absolutely necessary. And they get to determine what that is, right? Mm-hmm. It's not us who decides that. So when we look at the data and we look at, if you just look purely on the data of hires in this administration, right? You have people who are hired who you're going to have over the education department who've never been in education, and nor are they qualified. Or you get rid of generals and colonels and appoint someone who, because of where they work, don't even qualify to wear the uniform. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we are as far as the mediocre piece comes into play. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a group of people who know that they're so mediocre. And I had this one gentleman who worked in central office in DC one time, and we had this issue with a principal who was definitely not qualified for what she was doing. And then how people sided with them. And this one phrase he learned is, we always come up with all these euphemisms, right?
We do.
He said, Mr. Allworth, water seeks its own level. Water seeks its own level. And I'm going to let you all interpret that the way you will. But think about who's in charge, and you don't want that water. You're not going to go in high water. Well, your end of the pool is shallow. Totally shallow.
I've had that moment or two, although people who know that if you surround yourself with really great people, they make you look even better, but whatever, that's asking for too much. As Jazzy says, that part, Letta is sharing that. She said, I worked with so many mediocre people when I was in corporate, was that Ambit? Oh, I guess Ambit was insane. And then they have the nerve to want you to look up to them. No, yes, corporate America. I thought you were saying that. That's what I thought I was saying. Is that corporate America? I was putting it in there. I was like, put it in there, Gwendolyn, put it in there. And that's the damn shallow pool that it is.
Yeah, and you know what happens so often when we get into positions, instead of us being able to, Black people in particular, Black and brown able to be promoted, what they do is hire someone without the skills and ask you to train them so that they can become your supervisor.
Right.
And I know, talking to my children, that, you know, that's the thing. My son he is a Virgo. And he says, oh no, I'm not training them so they become my boss based on the knowledge that I've given them. And you don't want to promote me to that position, but you want me to train them, you know, to take over that role. And then I'm subservient to them.
You know, when I was younger, it was phrased as, you know, being a team player, sharing your genius. And I admit, in the moment it made sense, but the older I got, and when I got into certain positions and I'm working with people and I'm like, either you are trying to sabotage me or you're just simple, but it's got to be one of the two. One of the two. And so I found myself saying, I don't know about some of this anymore. I'm not so sure. Ron is sharing here that some stats place the Black unemployment at 8%. Oh, yeah. Let me know what that is. Let me know. Because what I said, I was looking at, and thank you for bringing that up really quick. Two things. One, everybody has, for the most part, a phone of some sort, some access to information. So when I said I went digging and looking and checking resources, I used not only the Heritage Foundation, Lord bless all of me. I'm gonna have some wine tonight. Reading some of that, yeah. But you can also use your AI tools. So Perplexity is great for fact checking. I also use Copilot. I use a lot of tools, but you have to want to get more than just one answer, right? And
absolutely.
In school, we research, we get more than one resource. So thank you for that, Ron. As Dr. Tachi shares, yes, culprit and also academia. I would sometimes look at people and say to myself, why are they here? Girl, all the time. All the time. Now, I want to make sure we keep this moving because
yes.
There's so much. It was a lot the last time. It's going to be a lot this time, too. I want to talk about the voting rights because this is really.
Oh, wow. Yes.
I don't know. Here's my deal. When people try to keep you from something, in my opinion, I get more determined to show up, right? So we're looking at stricter voter ID laws, voter roll purges, weakening federal oversight. Black women are one of the most consistent voting blocs, so they're looking to reduce our influence. That's major there. And I want to share with you just a couple of quick stories here. This came out not too long ago. This is out of Newsweek, but it's 9 ways to suppress African-American votes. It's the Republican playbook. I'm going to read one quick excerpt. We will put all of these links after this has aired so you can read it for yourself. But I want to scroll down to it says, to accomplish this, they first have to pretend that voter fraud is widespread. That's hard enough, since the data conclusively show voter fraud to be exceedingly rare. Then they must claim that their actions are the only way to restore election integrity. That's even harder, since selectively disenfranchising huge swaths of the eligible voting population would seem to undermine, not promote, election integrity. Finally, they need to pretend that only illegal voters are affected. For that claim, the tens of thousands of disenfranchised U.S. citizens in states like Kansas and Georgia stand awkwardly in the way. Now, if you've been watching the news just recently, this is out of Inside Higher Ed, that ahead of the 2026 primaries, the North Carolina State Board of Elections rejected a plan Tuesday to open an early voting center on the Greensboro campus of North Carolina A&T State University, according to North Carolina Newsline. And here's the reason why. He talked about that there's no parking. There's no parking. So they may set aside parking if it's filled, and then they'll get a ticket. And we don't put sites where there's no parking anywhere else. Now, keep in mind, these are your young voters. A lot of these young voters don't have cars. They don't have cars, but they're putting a plan in place to make sure that they do get a chance to vote. Ms. Alice, when you see something like this, like in my head, when you go after the young voters, when you remove polling locations, and this is just one of many stories of polling locations being removed, what do you see?
So when you look at, we have to be real clear. When we talk about blocking young voters, they're specifically blocking young voters that are Black.
Mm.
So we need to really highlight that, because, you know, that particular campus is an HBCU campus. So, and that's what's in Greensboro. And they will continue, and you make it, and this is on the campus, but they also have done it in Georgia as counties and areas where they've taken away polling places in places that are majority Black or brown, and they have to wait hours to vote. Whereas if you go out to the more affluent counties outside of Atlanta, you find that they don't have to wait, because they have a plethora of voting places. So it's not just going to be about what they take out of campuses. And the whole part about parking, let's be serious. Parking has nothing to do with this. Most campuses, I've seen that campus. First of all, it's where the place is located, right? Their parking spaces there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely right. The student body is the student body.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on there, they're not looking for parking spaces. They just left a dorm room. They've
Yes.
just left a class. So this is not, that has nothing to do with parking. That's just the smoke screen of taking it away. And they could say that every place around here about parking. I mean, I can tell you my polling place down the street from me, if for people who come around, there's not a lot of parking there either.
Mm-hmm.
I just happen to live in walking distance. The other place where I go for early voting is not right down the street from me. So that place doesn't have a lot of parking either. So it's nothing to do with parking. It's about who would vote. And you want them, these are the young people that you want to see vote.
Mm-hmm.
And the momentum is there for them to vote en masse, because that's already been proven. So that's really what it's about. We all know that the parking is crap.
It was the wackest excuse. The wackest. I don't even know, like here at UT Arlington, they have also removed a polling space off the college campus. And I don't know what excuse was given. I can't remember now. And I thought to myself, well, y'all are working double time. But again, what happens in Texas, trust, it becomes the blueprint for everybody else. So when people say, well, just move, it's like moving is not the answer, because it just spreads like a fire.
And it really is about oppression, right? When you look at oppressing the vote, you know, you don't want them. And those are the ways to make it inconvenient for us. As I would often share with people about Marion Barry, I say he was one of the most, he was good at making sure voters got out. There were buses. There were buses. He said, if you want something to eat, I'm going to provide food. There's going to be buses. He got people to the polls. If you need a ride, get to the polls. So they don't want it to be close enough for them to be able to get to the polls. That's a problem. They want to make it as inconvenient for Black and brown people to vote as possible. And we just have to show up. We just have to figure out how to carpool, how to get the resources to help people, how to find out who needs a ride. You know, that's where our churches come into places. These churches, we have 1 million churches in DC. They're church vans. That's when you start looking at what resources what community resources do we have to get Gwendolyn to her poll that's now moved 20 minutes away from her. Yeah. When it was right down the street before. And then if you live in enough places, you live in most of these places outside of places where they don't have public transportation.
Yes.
When you don't have public transportation, how do I get to a polling place that's now moved 10 miles away from me or more? In some cases more. How do I get there? Because I don't have the transportation to get there. And that's the whole point of it, is to make it as inconvenient as possible for them to get there to vote. But I told you the story of my daughter in Texas, down in Austin. She was like, wait a minute, my early polling place wasn't even open. And then I had to, and she and her friend went the first time to vote, and they were like, oh, they just told her that wasn't a place to vote. And so she had to figure out where she needed to go. And so they're going to continue to do that. And the more they are, and that's how you know they're nervous about what's happening, right? Mm-hmm. is because they're doing this, because they're trying to make it as inconvenient as possible, and definitely going to make it as inconvenient as possible for young Black and brown voters to vote.
Well, let's get some more of these comments, as Jazzy's talking about before, when we mentioned having to train your next person. She said they tried that with me. I absolutely not. Get somebody else to do it. Tati says, you see how much effort it takes for them to suppress. If they would use half of this effort into being excellent and serving everyone, it could just be that easy.
Yes.
It could just be, but you take so much time doing this. It's like, dude, why? Personal worth equals job. We've been conditioned to this mindset we have. We are, like I said, everybody gets there at their own time. Letter shares, I know when they decided to implement the real ID, that was to keep people in check and limit who could vote and travel freely. There's so much going on right now. Lucas should be named the liar. We are living in the world of bizarro. And we also have here that I went through the desert on a horse with no name. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I love that song. It's a great song.
So do I.
It's a great song.
One of my favorite ones.
He sure was. He sure was. So
can we go back a little bit about the ID part?
Yes.
I want people to hear this and hear this well. So now, and I don't know if you all heard this, but ICE is in court on behalf of the Americans, the citizens of America, of the United States, to say that state issued ID and real IDs aren't enough. And so now we're going to talk about passports. Now, I don't know if you all have, those of you who have gotten your real ID, guess what I had to take to make sure I got my real ID? My passport. So that real ID required that as a part of the proof, right? Your birth certificate, your passport, all of these things. I had to bring so much stuff, it was ridiculous. I had to come back home. I said, wait a minute, I'm gonna take everything I'm now have to come back. So, and I shared with you all where my husband read, we have these community listservs, and what he read was that a person went to a local Chevy Chase bank down the street from my house and wanted to cash a check. And they asked them, they showed them their license. They told them they wanted their passport. That person left that branch, went up the street in the opposite direction, same bank, and they were able to cash their check with their license. And so I told them my temptation is to go down to this other branch and ask them, who was it that told these people that? And why are we now trying to implement something that's definitely not legal? Well, so I want us to pay close attention to what they're attempting to do. And as we know, probably the majority of Americans do not have a passport.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, because they don't travel.
Right.
A good chunk of America does not travel, not even out of their own city. Like, really.
Like, not out of DC. That's sure.
No, I mean, like, it's just, it's interesting that you mentioned the passport, because here in Texas, which I shared, there is a guy who put through a bill that you are going to need more proof before you can register your car. And that proof also includes having a passport.
Right. And so that's their latest piece of oppression, right? And that covers, and that's why it's so important to really emphasize to lower income white people that it's not just about Black and brown people, it's about you as well, because that passport costs $150. Now you're going to choose the passport or you're going to eat. And the majority of them, as we know, West Virginia, wherever you live in, I know, or in those parts of Maryland, Virginia, Ohio, you don't have passport. So you will be in the same category unless they're totally racist. Yeah. And have to show themselves racist to say that the only people who can do it without a passport are white.
Yeah, if you're watching what's going on, there are more and more very simple things requiring a passport. Let me answer this and then we'll get back into it. This is Nick goes best mode. Okay. It says, I live in Houston and me and my family have never witnessed any sort of voter suppression. Is Houston an anomaly? Okay, so born and raised in Houston. And even when I moved here, it took me a while to move my voting space from Houston to Arlington. Harris County has moved and closed down some polling stations. So I don't know how long you have lived in Houston, but they are not exempt. They are not exempt from what's happening here. And a lot of things are happening in Houston because they are a very democratic city. And so there's a lot going on there. Before we go forward, let me do this because
I would like to, like, Nick.
Yes, go ahead.
Nick, who are you? Because who you are and what you look like predicts whether or not you've felt or seen suppression. I'm just going to keep it real.
Oh, I think he
may
have
left. You. Have a blessed night to you too.
Yeah, he may have left. He may have left the building.
Left after that question.
Yeah, I was like, we hadn't got a chance to get to everybody's question, but let me do this before we.
Well, you know how I am. I wasn't gonna let Nick be.
I know.
From that picture, he didn't look like me.
I know. She was like, if you put it out there, you better be ready for the answer. So let me share. If you're just tuning in, this is Girl.
Oh, okay. He's white. He's married to a Black woman for 25 years.
Okay. I'll come to his comment. I am Gwendolyn G.R. Houston Jack. I have Ms. Alice Harvey chatting with me. We're talking about the true cost of what has happened over the last year. It has been major. So before I go this, okay, so let me answer that and then we'll talk about healthcare. He says, I'm white. I'm married to a Black woman for 25 years. Okay, and you have lived in Houston all your life? Yeah, I don't know what part. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not trying to be funny, but are you in Houston proper or are you in like Houston metro area? Because I can say from the south side, some polling places happen close. But if we're talking like Baybrook, Kingwood, and something that's not Houston, that is, because I know Houston's huge, but no, Harris County, Houston has not been spared from the foolishness happening here. So there have been people who have had their polling places closed. I know I live in Arlington, but my family still lives in Houston. And I have nieces and nephews in HISD, so I am still heavily involved in what happens in Houston because it impacts my family. So I just want to know what's happening all over the place. So thank you for sharing that.
And honestly, some people may not understand that closing down polling places in particular neighborhoods is a part of voter suppression strategies.
So you ready for this one? This is a hard one. They're all hard, right? But this one's even harder. And I do want to say this too before I move on. What I didn't mention in the voter suppression was there is a connection to the no fault divorce rollback because you want to take away a woman's autonomy. It's a bigger strategy. I believe we're going to have time to get to it. I believe we are. So I want to make sure, but let's go talk about the women because when it comes to healthcare, my God, they're attacking reproductive restrictions, rollback of Medicaid expansions, attacks on IVF and reproductive technology. There's also stigma-based care. Now, I want to say this. Last year, Ms. Alice and I, we shared this. We shared how they were going to come for abortion. They were going to come for all the ways of getting any kind of reproductive health care, be it through the mail or what have you. This was put out in 2024. They said that. They said it. We read it. We shared it. And look what's happening now.
Right.
Look what's happening now when they talk about weaponizing the Department of Life. When they want to track pregnant women, when they're cutting off life-saving care for women whose health and life is at risk, ending IVF. This was all put out in 2024. We put all of this out, every single thing. Now, what I read recently was about Harris County, because again, this just came out. It made national news because it was so awful. The mortality rate for Black mothers, the maternal mortality rate, it nearly doubles the national average. Wow. Houston isn't just home to the largest medical center in the world. It is also, as new data suggests, the deadliest place in America for Black women to give birth. I yeah. Yes. When I say broke my heart to see it, it broke my heart. And I didn't write it down, so God forgive me. But there was a young lady who she was an advocate for Black
Yeah.
maternal health, recently died giving birth to her baby.
Yes.
And I just said, this is it's a lot. So
Right. A big part of it is, it goes back from the very beginning of when they used to experiment on Black women,
yeah.
and for OBGYN practices, and not accepting when they say to the medical professional, I know there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the mother who went in and was in labor, and she's like, hey, this baby's about to come. And they said, oh, no, you're not far dilated enough, so go home. And her husband has to deliver the baby in the car.
Mm-hmm.
She could have lost her life
just
from that. Because what if there was bleeding? What if there was anything that happened in that? But she had to, the medical professions, the doctors and the nurses right there decided that she didn't need to stay.
Yeah.
Because they often ignore when Black women say they're having a problem. I know for me personally, I'm very in tune with what goes on in my body and what I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately for me, even though I had my children years ago, I had doctors, and they, most of them were white, who were very attuned to, they listened. They paid attention to what I was experiencing, what I shared with them. So all too often, Black women just aren't listened to.
Yes.
When they're told, I have a pain here, I have a pain in my leg, I have whatever is going on with me, or I feel something. They just don't listen to them. No. And then they have this idea, oh, they can stand the pain. No, we have pain just like anyone else. We're not immune to feeling those pains and having those risks. So a part of it is simply them not listening to a Black woman when she says something, and then understanding that so much of what goes on in the medical field, the people that they are working for to ensure how healthy they are us.
Yeah.
So that's how they react. That's how they respond to us. So
when I was looking at this and I see somebody says it applies to all women. Okay. Yes. It applies to all women. I am particularly highlighting Black women because our health was already at risk, and now more so than ever. So I want to talk about how some of the programs have been reduced and how it impacts all women. So there are federal programs that fund maternal health research, perinatal care, and community-based support. The researchers warn that those cuts would reduce access to prenatal, delivery, and postpartum care, especially for Black women who already face the steepest barriers. Like, there's already a stigma attached to us. And Absolutely. Then this happens. And so it doesn't make it better. It makes it harder. It makes it worse.
And then when they have programs that Black women have in the medical field have established to help with that situation, they started saying, oh, it's just for Black women. Well, that was where the problem was. Oftentimes programs and things are developed, it first starts with the problem, right? Mm-hmm. It starts with what's going on. That's where the problem was that they needed to deal with, and it was their community. And it should be okay to be able to help your community. Now, if someone else can benefit from what you found out and the positive work you were doing in your community, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But a lot of it starts in the community. So it's not to say other women don't have a problem, but the data shows that Black women in particular have the highest mortality rate in childbirth.
So can I add on to that real quick, since you mentioned data, because I was going there. So Project 2025 proposes dismantling the federal data collection. They want to eliminate it. So that means it's harder to track Black maternal deaths. That means federal maternal health surveillance systems, FDA oversight, public health data collection infrastructure, maternal mortality review committees, they lose funding. So fewer investigations into Black maternal deaths. States with the worst outcome, like Texas, would no longer be required to report accurate data. And when you have underreporting, it increases it becomes harder to address the issues happening because you don't have the numbers.
Absolutely.
And you start guessing.
Absolutely. And so and they will use the fact that the data doesn't show, which is like some people like to say, the data doesn't show, and the data won't show because you're not tracking the data anymore. They're more concerned about the data they can get on a woman's menstrual cycle than they are on maternal health.
So, okay, let us move right through. And just before I move on, I don't want to ignore the comment. So I see that you're out in, my wife's is north in Acres Homes. Yeah. So, you guys live in Kingwood. Okay. Yeah. Houston's huge. So when people say Houston, I'm always like, are we talking about Houston? You talking Sugar Land, Missouri City, like where? Because Houston is Houston and there's everything else. But
Texas, everything's big in Texas.
Yes. In Houston, there we're doing some stuff. We're going to talk about the family. So I want to do education and then family because this is all linked together. And I know this time goes by so fast. And this topic is, that book is like what, almost like 900 pages.
Yeah.
So even the last time we talked about it, we had to pick particular topics to talk about because it's so huge.
Right.
As Jazzy says here, I think that's the thing that's lost on people. If you don't have the data, you can't produce the fixes. Yeah. And these people, if they don't like the numbers, they just disappear. So that's how that works. So we're talking about education, the future of Black children, curriculum restrictions, attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion in schools, privatization push for schools. Hello, public schools lose funding. And then family values curriculum. Now they just put out the reading list, the suggested list here in Texas, which influences curriculums nationwide.
Yes, Texas.
Because we need to have the Bible in the classroom. And so mixed in with all of these books, primarily by white male authors.
Yes.
There are Bible lessons that need to be read as well. Now, look, I don't care what your religion is. Even if I was a Christian, I'm not going to force my religion on somebody else. That's not proper. It's not right. No, that's not the place for that. It's just not the place for it. But Ms. Elise, tell us, how are Black students going to be impacted by these policies? Because they're erasing Black history. They're taking down all the things. Well, take it back. They're taking down the physical signs of the history. The history is still here.
Right. So in addition to that, of course, it would be the examination of curriculum and materials that go into schools, right? So that would be one area of where it is. And we have to think about the programs too. I was going back because I like to go back and look at the references. So programs that also helped get them college ready or ready for other careers, they want to eliminate or limit those programs. They want to, they couch it as saying, oh, we want parents to have more say. But there's some parents who aren't equipped they don't know what to do, and they often are looking for someone to help them do that, right? So let's give them some money, but where's that money going? And then we also, and I can only go back to history of Ohio when they started their voucher program and found out that one of the biggest group of schools receiving those in Cleveland, the person was a friend of the governor of the state of Ohio at the time. And then the way they want to do it with those programs is to make it, because it's written in there and it specifically mentioned DC, and I'm talking about it because it specifically mentioned DC's program that helps students who are coming from underprivileged homes have access to other schools other than public schools. And so what they want to do is what they talked about in Texas, is eventually so that anyone, no matter what income level they have, can have the opportunity to get the funding to go to these private schools, which has always been the case. So they supplement those programs, right? And so what we have to realize is that oftentimes it's difficult because you have the parents will have to pay end up paying something. Oftentimes the parents who can't afford it still can't afford it.
Yes.
Because the tuitions are so high. So that's the same, and it's actually written in Project 2025 that way. So what what Texas, the state of Texas talks about is exactly what's written in Project 2025. But they use DC specifically by name in the document.
They did.
At that point. And so we talk about the programs like that. We have to talk about funding for education, how they want to take, reduce or eliminate certain loan protections for families, put some limits on how much you can borrow. So all of those things are a part of that program. And all of those things are directly lifted from the education section in Project 2025. So if you want to read it, the education section starts on page 302.
Yes, it is there. Let me add on to that, because what people also don't think about, and I had this chat yesterday with a dear friend, but kids need to see themselves in school. Okay? They do. So when they talk about these restrictions beyond erasing or removing Black history, Latino history, what have you, beyond that, when you attack diversity, equity, and inclusion, you want to remove Black teachers, counselors, principals. Now, I have seen some teachers treat kids a certain way, and we don't have to even pretend. When you have a little white boy bouncing around, doing this and that, he's just having fun. But when it's the little Black kid, because it could be a girl or a boy, it becomes a side eye. It becomes they have problems. It becomes all these other things. We have seen this in schools. We know this happens. That's not just making it up. The other part, though, is with the Heritage Foundation. They want to reinforce traditional gender roles, do this family values curriculum, make sure you have these heterosexual norms, and their idea of family, because we're going to go there next, because we have just enough time to go there. Their idea of family is the father. No, they said the biological father, the biological mother, and they are married.
Right. That's their idea of family, right?
They made sure they were clear in biological father and mother. I'm like, so are we not adopting kids?
That's an interesting point, right? What about those children who are adopted? What about the children who, that's a part of people who claim that they're in it for children. You want them here, but you don't want to make sure they're cared for.
Yes.
And so there are children who need homes and who get adopted into homes. They're not biologically those people's children, and that maybe they're trying to get at some other things, but they're not biologically their children, but they all are a part of a family.
Yes.
And so how they talk about family, how they use the language, and how they look at the programs and what they want to do as it refers to gender identity, and all of those things, and just the amount of information that they don't want to track, right? They don't want to track disciplinary information. So that's a part of the data they don't want to be collected. Because when as an administrator, and I worked in DC, the school that I retired from, the middle school I retired from, was a majority white student. It was diverse. It was probably one of the most diverse schools, but it still was where it was located. And so I observed different behaviors. And I handled it differently because I wanted to make sure that the adults who I addressed were able to see themselves.
Yes.
So I didn't just go and say, you did what, blah, blah. No, I asked them to think about a particular child and asked them what was their response and how did their response differ from the other child. So for example, two young boys had an altercation in 7th grade class. One was Black, one was white. The teacher had the Black young man escorted to my office. And I was like, who did you have the altercation? Did you have the altercation with? And he told me. And so I then sent him back to the teacher and told him that the other student needed to come as well. And so I had a conversation with the teacher and asked her, why did you do that? And I also asked the young man, the white male student, how did you feel when the teacher did not send you? He said, I felt like I had gotten away with it. But you have to have people see themselves without jumping all that over them, so that they can actually be able to see themselves and understand that you're not accusing them of anything. Just want them to understand their own behavior.
That bias, it does show up. Let me get to some comments. We may go a little over people because this last one is a goodie. Nick says here, I really like your comments on public school. We have 2 daughters that were homeschooled along with a network that had a majority of Black families. Our youngest daughter is in public school in Kingwood. I'm a public school person from Texas. Somewhere along the way, we went wayward. Because what we're doing now, as you mentioned, I don't believe a lot of the folks who are in the rooms making decisions are even close to being people who have did anything with education. It's about the money, but that's a different conversation. Jazzy says, listen, I have a whole stories about how certain teachers treat Black and brown children. I can write a whole bag on book reports on that. Look, we've seen it. We have seen it. All I can say is I don't want to live on the same street as these singers, the satanic verses. I don't want thunder to split me in two. Let me go to our last topic here. This is a good one because this is the family control agenda. Now, again, we've already said it. If you're not paying attention to it, it does impact every single person. Yes, that's every single person, right? Who's not a white heterosexual man. Okay. So this is, let me take my comments off because I got to read this. This is from the Heritage Foundation. I kid you not. So eliminating no-fault divorce nationwide, government incentives for marriage and childbirth, policies that prioritize heterosexual 2-parent households as the ideal, and then reduce support for single parents. Now, I want to read this to you. I'm going to read it. Give me a moment, people. Give me a moment. But to end America's family crisis, policymakers and civic leaders should treat restoring the family home as a matter of justice driven by 2 truths. The first is that all children have a right to the affection and protection of the man and woman who created them. The second is that the ideal environment in which to exercise this right is in a loving and stable home with their married biological parents. In contrast, the default in American culture today is to put the desires of the adults over the needs of the children. Children are too often called to sacrifice what is due to them, the presence of their mom and dad under the same roof for the entirety of their childhood. Now, this is the summary from the Heritage Foundation. They just wrote this, Saving America by Saving the Family, a foundation for the next 250 years. Now, let me tell you, you can find the time to, all of their documents, you want to find time to read them, but I'm going to highlight some of this really quick because they talk about how we got here. They blame certain things, but one of the second waves was feminism and the sexual revolution. It promoted an individualistic, child-free, marriage-free sexual liberation that promised to lead to an unparalleled era of consent-based human happiness and fulfillment. Over the course of 60 years, casual sex, abortion, childlessness by choice, and no-fault divorce became normalized, while marriage and the natural family became stigmatized. Okay, so like I said, find the time to read it when you have, if you got a little moonshine on you, take that, because you're gonna need it. You're gonna need something. I find it so interesting that childlessness by choice is a problem.
Yes,
divorce is a problem. and this does go on to talk about incentives. They have marriage boot camps. They want to incentivize you to stay married, even if that marriage is violent.
Absolutely. And J.D. Vance said that. Said a woman should stay with her husband even if they're being abused. That's ridiculous. That would never happen in my life.
So let me just give you guys real quick how this could impact everybody. And trust me, they're working on the no fault divorce right now. So keep your eyes on that. Keep your eyes on it. But eliminating that, right? It removes a woman's choice or even the husband's choice to be safe. Okay, let's just go ahead and put that out there.
Right.
If you are facing any kind of emotional or financial abuse, because that's there too, no fault divorce takes that away. Black women already have higher rates of intimate partner violence, so this policy makes it even more dangerous. Pro-natalist incentives ignore economic realities and push women into traditional roles. These policies are part of a broader attempt to control women's bodies, choices, and futures. Let me just make this clear. There's a reason why people aren't having babies. People can't afford to have babies.
Absolutely.
They can't afford housing. They can't afford food. You have two income households. Right now, there are a lot of adults, US wide, that are sleeping either in a long-term stay motel, their car, or they're out in some camp. There's a reason why people aren't having babies.
Right. And people don't understand the idea of the working class poor in America. We always have. And then, when you talk about the no fault divorce, they want to roll it back to the 70s, the early 70s, when you had to, there's a wait time. A woman can't file for a divorce. They want to take it back to that part. And then I was reading something the other day, and it was like, it was just so crazy of a woman, a part about being single, a woman being single, and how if they're single at this time, they'll increase the amount of taxes they have to pay just because they're single. And you don't believe it, look it up, people.
It's real.
At least it's not making anything up. It's out there. And then saying, basically trying to force women into marriage. I want people to understand there are states such as Kentucky that have tried to make it legal for young girls 13, 14 years old to be married to older men. They want to make that legal, but this is the group that talks about and been really freaking me out. Every time I hear someone talking about ICE stuff recently, and this is coming out of their mouth, talk about, these people have a pedophiles. But you all are protecting them. You're protecting them. You want to change the law so that you can legally violate a child? And so those are things that they want to put on their books. And the reason they haven't, because people found out about it and they made it public and they took it out. But they were trying to vote on that. So you talk about a woman, they didn't say about men being penalized, a woman being penalized through her taxes. They're not married by 30. Here's the consequence. If they're not, all of this is about how your taxes would go up because you're single. Because they can't, it's like the birth dearth book I told you all about. They don't want abortions, but they couldn't just say white women because then it would be racist. So this is purely about who they're talking about. So if we go out there and we start having black and brown people, we just go out there and have tons and tons of children. That's not what they really want.
No.
And then they're specifically talking about married because you hear them constantly now quoting the statistics of how many black children are being raised in single family homes. What percentage of black children live in single family homes? So that's specifically why they're addressing that. So, you want to give married couples tax deductions, and then you want to penalize single women who aren't married. You're not married, you don't have any children. So there's a consequence for that, financial consequence for that. And so we have to be real aware of what's taking place and how it's doing. And we're just, people are still in that frame of mind of, that can't happen. It is happening, people.
It's happening.
It's documented. They've written about it. They're pushing toward that. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the people that had said it recently is Russell Vought, who is one of the founders who came up with Project 2025, who now works in the federal government with this administration. He's one of the people out here saying there should be these consequences for married couples. And so no woman in America whether she's black or white or brown or whoever you are, what language you speak, they're not concerned about your safety.
No.
All they're concerned about is they don't want the 2040 prediction to be correct. That if things continue the way it is, that they will no longer be the majority population in this country. And here's my comment for the state of Texas. They're not majority population in your state. You need to get out and vote, and not voting them in there to control you.
Because we're already upside down, but you wouldn't know it.
Right.
We're already upside down. Well, I should say for them, upside down.
Yeah.
Look, so let me get some of these comments because I know we're there. Dr. Tachi says, so no support for Erica K then. She's now a single mother. She can't get remarried. And look, we already know some of this. We already know, yes, 250 years. Again, the long game. We barely got to the first 250, and as is, the country won't last another 5. I don't know what the future of America looks like, but it needs to be reimagined clearly because we got a lot of work to do now. Y'all should go longer. Just make it a part 2. It's just there's so much. When I already paid $1 gazillion in taxes as is. There's room in Ghana. Here's the deal. I kid you not. When I was reading some of the incentives for marriage and childbirth, they were talking about promoting or doing like a public post and giving couples who are married for 50 years, all kinds. I mean, when I say they have written this stuff out, they've written it out. And if you want to take it and read, like I said, I'll put the link in the description after this has posted. But it's lengthy. I'm not making up these words. I'm literally clipping it off the website.
Absolutely. And
it's instead of going for Cliff Notes, and I know there's a place for that, but sometimes you got to read it for yourself because you think they just make this up. You can't make up some of this. Some of this right here, you cannot make this up.
The stuff that's in Project 2025, you can't make it up. And then, talk about the one statistic we have not addressed is that Project 2020, 50 to 51% of Project 2025 has been implemented by this current administration.
Thank you. Yes, we did not mention that.
That's why it's so important for you to, if you can still find it, to go and read it or read the summary. You got to read something so that you're educated and understand that what's happening now. They've been planning this. The first document came out, Ronald Reagan was president.
Yes.
And
so that's when it started.
They're playing the long game. All of this is about long game. They talk about 250 years, but they want to exhaust us and frustrate us so much that we're not paying attention to how so that we're not paying attention to that we're in the pot and it's boiling. It's getting hotter. And
yes,
so
we are the frogs.
The heat being turned up. And we don't think about what does the long term look like for us? What is it that we need to fight for the long term? And what are we willing to risk to get there?
If I may, really quick, as I know we got these comments, and I want to thank Nick for sharing his comments with us and just joining this conversation. As Lisa was saying that, yes, we had a chat the other day, and Jazzy is saying that part of Ali's is happening. That's not future speak. We are in it now. Here is the deal. As a person who is back in the classroom teaching the babies, I actually scanned the QR code to possibly be a substitute teacher because I'm thinking maybe I need to get in the classroom for a couple of days. Maybe I don't know where this time is going to come from, but go figure. But here's the deal. When you look at how a lot of these kids don't even read a complete book and how with Texas, we are more focused on these Bible stories versus competing on a global stage, you are creating a generation of workers that will just be in the factories that these folks are imagining. That guy from NVIDIA, he was like, I imagine a workforce where you work in the factory, your kid works in the factory, his kid works in the factory. Well, your kid ain't in the factory. Your kid's not their billionaire.
Absolutely not.
You dumb down a generation who has no reading and comprehension skills. They can barely write. It's like you are creating this workforce that all they can do is be the working poor. What 50-year
Right.
mortgages, 10-year car loans. They will be in debt. It is
Yes,
modern day sharecropping.
absolutely.
That's
And
the
one,
plan.
yeah, and one thing I wanted to add, I'm trying to make sure exactly what I was going to add, because you kind of made me go off task there for us.
I know. I'm sorry.
Let me think about it. Look, I think I totally got it, missed it, but I think it was like paying attention to what that really is. The idea of you just becoming the working drone, and understand that at the same time they're saying this, that even that is interesting, because they're already working on robots to take over those roles. So then you won't have as many jobs out there as either. So we have to constantly think about what it is that they're doing while they have you working in the meantime, and creating their workforce, what that looks like. And then I know it came back to me what I wanted to say. So a part of this whole thing, when they talk about teaching children about critical race theory and all this stuff, which was never taught in schools the way they talk about, we'll talk about what CRT was in schools that had nothing to do with this. But when they talk about having, and I was reading this in Project 2025 education section, we don't want teachers and students to have things forced on them, somebody else's ideas and opinions and ideologies forced on them, but yet we're going to have Bible lessons.
Yes.
Somebody else's beliefs and ideology being forced on someone else. And so, and our challenge, like I said before, it's time for people in these education settings who have children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews who are in this setting to use the laws that they put on there, out there. If that child is made to feel uncomfortable because of what they look like or who they are, use their laws to prove your case. It's going to prove, and if they rule against you, then it proves what you went out to do. That it's about bias and racism. It's about that part. It's not about making sure that our children are protected, and that they're not influenced by outside forces, by things that they're not comfortable with and don't believe in, but being forced upon them.
Yeah.
So use their laws. They put it on there. Now it's time to test it. It's time to bring the horse to the water, make him drink.
Bring the horse to the water and make him drink. Let's get these last few comments, Ms. Elise. Dr. Tachi says, research just came out that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are struggling to read single sentences. That was an Afrotech. Yes, people. There's a reason why I'm a reading partner, right? There, like at the end of the day, what is happening, we have two choices. You can either sit on the sideline and act like, oh, I can't do anything, or you can do what you can do. Do a book club, do some volunteering, do whatever you got to do. You have to get involved.
Absolutely.
I don't have any kids of my own in the school district. It doesn't matter. Because if it hits this person, it hits me too. We are all tied together, people. That's what that is. She says, I'm a huge fan of The Twilight Zone. The other day, they played one of my favorite episodes, The Obsolete Man. If you get a chance, watch it. Rod Sterling was definitely a futurist. We'll have to check that out.
He was.
These fools don't follow the Bible. How are they going to teach somebody else? You know, I can't explain it. Alice, now you know you're using too much logic for them to understand. Nick says, I would love to know what your hat means.
So Nick, I'll share with you what my hat means and the pillows behind me. So as you know, in the Constitution, at one point, Black people were considered 3/5 of a human being. And that was to give Southern Confederate states some advantages, right? But we were not considered a full human being. So 5/5 equals one whole person. So that's what it means. I'm a whole person. Never was 3/5. But it was because of how they represented Black people enslaved Black people in the Constitution. At one point, we were considered only 3/5 of a human being. So that's what 5/5 means.
I believe that is the way we're going to end this show, Miss Alice. Now, before we let the people go, because I like I said, the book was already like 900 pages. And so to try to wrap your arms around all the damage that has been done in 1 year, y'all, when I say I was overwhelmed, I wasn't lying. I wasn't lying about that. But if you want to connect with Ms. Alice, You can check her out on YouTube and on Instagram. She is in both places, so please connect with her. She has a plethora of information. It's just, at the end of the day, if you have a community and you should belong to something, you're gonna have to fight for it, right? I'm just saying.
I want to say something to Nick. Nick, I appreciate you staying and wanting to find out information. That's really what it's about. You are raising young children who are children of who are brown. And to make sure that you understand everything, and your wife, sometimes even us as Black people don't have the same information. We don't know because it wasn't taught to us either. Lots of things weren't taught. I just had a different education because of where I was born. I was born in Tuskegee, Alabama, which was founded by freed Black slaves. So my education was different. But there are lots of things that my husband, who grew up in Ohio, don't know about what happened with Black enslaved people, or doing Jim Crow or Reconstruction. So knowledge is our power.
Amen to that. Amen. Okay, don't go anywhere, Miss Elise. I want to say this. Thank everybody for showing up. I knew we were going to go over it because, like, why wouldn't we? But this is another episode of Girl Listen. I am Gwendolyn G.R. Houston Jack. I'm going to put those links in there. I do suggest, if you have some time to read, to go to the Heritage Foundation, read their article, get all the info. Because there's more to take in. Until then, please be safe, and I will see you all next week, Lord willing. Hey, it's G. Thank you for watching this episode of Girl Listen. Be sure to catch me every Friday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. And while you're here, I cordially invite you to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you all next week.